majority in favour of the status quo, the global power, the British Empire. Somehow they turned that to a 80% majority of Irish people who were willing to back the rebels, and that is the magic of 1916, that somehow they managed to do what our generation hasn't been able to do, and what the famine generation wasn't able to do, because after years of famine, people were still majority pro-British somehow. At the Battle of Kinsale, people were, and this is a story nobody likes to tell, that the majority of Irish people were pro-British, but they understood the vision and they backed it. There was only a minority of rebels ever, but somehow 1916 they managed to turn that around, and that's magic. Whatever they do, and
there's also the cruelty of the British. Yeah, unspeakable cruelty of executing all those men.
Yeah.
That it'll take another terrible act of cruelty on the part of the British or the EU overlords before the public opinion unites with us.
Yeah. And listen, after that, it was from the famine to the rising was 70 years. So somehow, despite all that cruelty, for 70 years, people couldn't wake the Irish up, but that's the reality of politics, and but I think you're onto something there, Simon. I think that the cruelty, I think that the loss of freedom could become an issue, that could turn people around.
The executions really, wasn't it though? The executions that caused the public opinion to change. The executions of the 1916 signatories and other men.
Yeah. And yet the Free State still executed 3 times as many Irish Republicans as the British did. But something happened that loss of power and that lack of trust, that lack of trust in the foreign thing, that lack of trust in the British authority, that somehow the rebels took hold of that somehow, and they turned it around. They created freedom for us, some kind of freedom, some kind of opportunity for us, which nobody else did, which was a good thing looking back, on balance.
There's very much now an urban and rural divide in Ireland. It's the urban people are not very much in our corner at the moment. It's going to come from rural Ireland, any kind of. But how do we get the urbanites on board? How do we get them to agree with us and to believe in Ireland once again that we can?
Thanks, Lynn.
You're getting to move into the country.
Yeah,
It's as simple as that. And live a more organic, more natural, close to nature lifestyle where they can connect with the landscape and with the landscape and the natural essence of the land, if you like. If people move from the cities to the country, they'd have more common sense, basically. Because nature teaches us the natural order of things, the logos of creation. That's my feeling. That if they did move out, they'd change within a few years.
And that's totally contrary to all agendas.
Yeah, but the thing is,
us to move into the towns and cities.
People in the cities though would be frightened. Generally speaking, most people in the cities, until they get really fed up with it, will be too frightened to move from that environment, because that environment supports their dysfunction. In fact, that environment is part of their dysfunction. But they can't see what all the distraction is about, really, that it is a distraction from reality. That it's a man-made environment where the people who rule that environment control what people see and live in, you know, the particular landscape that they live in, you know, and it's technocratic and it's technological and it's unreal in many ways. And so they wouldn't have much of an idea about the essence of Ireland, if you want to call it that, you know, the landscape, and you know, they would be frightened of being on their own in the middle of, say, a wood, or even on mountain tops, you know, because the
urbanites.
I'm just generalising that people in the city feel safe, even though they might not talk to people. They're surrounded by people. Yeah.
I brought my cousin, up to the Burn when she was in. I brought her, we went around all day, I showed her beautiful mountains, lakes, lovely scenery. And when we got back to my house, she said, all I want to do is go back to Penny's. She couldn't see the beauty. She thought that this was just an empty, barren place.
There's nothing there.
Yeah, she wanted to go shopping in a town.
Because in a way they're frightened of facing themselves. You see, when you're in a wilderness area, you have to go deeper within yourself.
Yes.
Because you're not being taken out of yourself. Yeah. So you go within yourself, and that would be quite frightening for many people, because a lot of people have obviously a lot of stuff stashed away they're not going to look at. You know, I think when people move to Ireland, they do sleep a lot because they're processing a lot. You know, when we all moved over, we were sleeping lots, I seem to remember, you know, but it was a good sleep, and it was a processing,
Restorative.
almost like a detoxing from the city, you know. That's what it felt like, you know, where suddenly, although your physical world was slowing down, your actual mental faculties were speeding up.
Yes.
Back to nature.
Yeah, you know, and it's more subtle, you know. And
Well, the thing about it is the city is where the experiment happens, isn't it? You know, people can go to the city to imagine the life they want to hope for. So the cities are experimental places, and they're often failures as experiments. In fact, I would say that in many ways cities have a lot of failed social situations compared to the country, you know. But for people who reject the place they're in for whatever reason, and it's a place that immigrants come to. What you see is you don't see immigrants come to the country. Immigrants make their
Cities and towns.
yeah, they make their cultures in the cities because it's an experimental environment. It's an environment that you can change and make your own.
There's an opportunity there.
And so, you know, young liberals go to the city. Black Lives Matter go to the cities to create these utopias. You know, and that's what you see in the cities. You know, you see this mix match thing. And that's what works for the globalists. You know, the globalists love this because they're going out to work every day, and instead of creating their vision, a successful vision, they're making the money machine happen.
They're compromising.
The money machine happens with those guys because they're prepared to get on the treadmill, make those rent payments, you know, because they're being sold a dream, you know, and the dream never really happens, you know. You never see a city environment which is a model that you can say, oh, this rears great children, you know, this has a great sense of community or whatever. But you know, in the end, it functions for the money makers, and that's the actual dream which happens. It's not the Black Lives Matter dream. It's not the immigrant dream. It's the money dream, you know, and that's what happens. And you know, in the end, these guys love the cities because the country is costly. You know, the country requires services. The country requires all this stuff, and they want to cut down on the country because the country is a problem. whereas the cities make money. You know,
Country people are self-sufficient, can be self-sufficient. It's less dependable on the system.
Yeah, they have the means to support themselves without too much interference from governments. You know, and I suppose the worst nightmare for many, governments would be to see people just getting on with it and just living the life in a self-sufficient way, in an interconnected community where you don't have to do everything yourself. Where you're actually sharing certain tasks, but the energy and the creativity is kept in that locality, and also the money circulates around that area as well. It's not siphoned off all the time. See, the cities and the urban areas, parasitic. They draw energy from the real wealth countries, which is God-given, if you like, in nature and the wealth being created and grown in the crops, in the countryside, and the crops
and the labour,
and the forests and rivers and all the wealth, the real wealth, and they draw it to the city. I think cities can work if they were smaller and if they were like 50% greener. There were more green spaces in those cities, so they'd have to be depopulated by at least half for them to work, and be more self-sufficient as well, so that people are actually working real things. See, the people in the cities are actually doing sort of pretty much non-real things. Half of them will be in front of a computer screen doing nothing.
It's crazy in Ireland.
Working with abstractions.
They're not doing real work.
Yeah,
not real work.
It's all left brain.
They haven't got a work balance where people in the countryside have to be, quite practical and by using your body.
And do a bit of accounts every now and again as well.
Yeah, when you're using your body, your God-given body has great function, right? With the mind, If you take that away, like that's what appropriate technology is about. It's where does the technology support being human, our physical selves, and where does it take that away and we become just, operators of a machine, such as the Charlie Chaplin thing in modern times. That classic film, from 100 years ago, Charlie Chaplin in modern times. What's so funny about it is because it's real, that people are becoming more machine-like. Yeah, it was, that's why people are laughing. Oh my God, that's us. That's our future. Because they're mindless, working. I mean, the great thing about coming from the city is that you actually appreciate the more simple things that the country folk that were born there don't appreciate.
Yes,
so
very
by
true.
my father going over to Manchester and me being raised in Manchester, but still having a connection with Ireland, over here, I actually could see that the real wealth of what Ireland is, and that was the thing that brought me back, because I could see how after a decade or two, you can see how empty it is and how limiting it is to be dependent mainly on the banking system, really, because you never actually own anything in the city, because to buy anything you've got a mortgage, and
if you've got a mortgage, you've got to have life insurance.
Yeah, and then you live in 20 years, 30 years just to get even. Whereas if you move into the countryside, you can live quite simply, in a caravan or a shed or whatever you want to build. Although they're making it more and more difficult to do that now.
All the time.
Yeah, but I advise any young person now that I'm teaching to say, forget about those ridiculous rules. Just buy it, find a piece of land that you love, move on there and live on it, and whatever you can afford. And face the opposition, of course, from people who are feeling quite envious because these young people have the nerve to do that. And why should they get away with it? I've been paying a mortgage for 30 years, So, you always get those snitches that would snitch on those people who are just building simple things without planning.
I've seen where, like those Bell transport big boxes, where on YouTube they've converted them to live in. And
Containers.
Containers.
The tiny house.
Yeah.
Oh man.
In the country.
Yes.
Yeah, I love those channels.
Well, you could put it anywhere.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, to me that sounds, if they were stacked on top of each other like sails, that would be inhuman, but in 5 acres of land, then it's a different story, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I love what you're saying about that as a returned immigrant, or an immigrant son, you can appreciate things that people who are here can't appreciate or trying to escape from. I remember coming back from the UK, and I couldn't wait to hook up a pony in a trap. That was like, and people here were looking at pony and traps like, oh, mortification, to be seen driving along the road in a pony and trap. But to me, I knew what wealth was. I knew what all those things were, and I had the joy of just a pony and trap, being able to transport everything you need, no insurance, no tax, no nothing. To be able to do that was a joy to me, and something I really desired, And but to a lot of the guys here who were born and reared here, it was like the fool and his donkey, and this kind of thing. And I think that a lot of those guys now, 20 years later, will look at the tub traps that they let fall to pieces and the old farm machinery that went out in the scrap and wish they had it now. I think a lot of them will value the things they didn't value 20 years ago, because that's part of the process. And as returned immigrants, we have, and that's one of the wonderful things about Irish culture, is that we have this ebb and flow going on, which teaches us something about ourselves. And if we listen to it, there's a lot to learn, and I think you look at the Rising, how many, even that line out of the national anthem, some have come from a land across the seas, and that's the strength of Irish culture, that we have so many different versions of culture that we can, it's like our own little empire that we can learn from, and there's a strength to that, and I think that's something that's going on right now,
Official Ireland's trying to write them out.
Well, it is, and there's so many. I mean, look at the diversity.
And make
of
it
Irish
difficult for them to
culture.
get back in.
You've got the Republic, you've got the North, you've got the immigrants, you've got the travellers, you've got so many different kinds of Irish people. Protestants, Catholics, and the temptation is to be monocultural. To just, I'm an Irish Catholic. But actually, Irish culture has a whole lot more to it that we all have a connection to and an ownership of. And just within Irish culture, there's a multiculturalism, and that's a richness in itself. Now, and there's a lot to learn from that, and that's been a strength to us over the years.
The thing about people coming back into the country or attracted to the country, like, quite a lot of where I live, quite a lot of Europe.
Somebody's phone's ringing.
Or it's probably my wife.
No, because mine is very important.
It's not important, otherwise they'd have the phone with them, wouldn't they?
Thank you.
Yeah.
What was I saying now?
The attraction of people into the country.
Yeah, you see, the people that are attracted to Ireland for whatever reasons, mainly from Europe, where we are, the blow-ins, if you want to call them that, the people that come back, half of them would be English like me, English-Irish, then you would get an old spattering of French, German, Swiss, Italian, not so much Italian, one or two Spanish, some Swedish, some Norwegian. You get an old mix, but I often ask, I always ask people, why did you come here? Because I'm curious to know what drew people. It was easy for me because my father was from Ireland, and I always had that close connection. But for some people, it's not so clear why they came here. But I think the answer would be in whether they can actually connect through the heart to that country. If they have a heart connection, then they will defend it. They will defend it, because that's why I came here, because I was attracted to Ireland as I felt it, as I was cycling through the West
Yeah.
in Connemara, and I felt strong
And then
attraction, you know. And it's a
would-
heart thing. It's a heart
You've
thing.
just encapsulated the difference between globalism and
That's
nationalism.
it, because
Yes.
that's what I was going to say. The
We're on
immigrants,
it.
the immigrants
We're
are
on
just
it.
planted,
Yes.
planted here. It wasn't their choice.
Yeah.
They just wanted a
Don't
better
know where they're
life.
going, yeah.
They wanted a better life, right, materially. But that's not what it's about. You see. So they're
didn't
like
choose it.
They're like a fish out of water in that they're in this place not for the right reasons, because they actually just wanted, you know, to survive in many ways. You know, that they was, you know, so desperate that would go anywhere to the West.
Yeah, and what you're describing to me is the difference between the age of saints and scholars and the British Empire.
Yeah.
You know, the age of saints and scholars is where people come from all over the world to Ireland to support and defend an Irish vision, you know, for Ireland.
Yeah.
And the other one is where the Irish are fed in, are delivered into a system which
To do a job
benefits
for the
rest
elites.
of the world. You know,
Oh,
where
not
we,
even for the
we
elites.
and everybody else are all delivered into a global
Michael was saying
vision,
for the bankers,
which is not
bankers' empire.
for our good. And that is you've encapsulated the difference between nationalism and globalism. And it is the difference between the age of saints and scholars and the British Empire. You know, it's all about a global vision and an Irish vision. And people misunderstand. Just because you've got a mixture going on doesn't mean that it's a mixture which is going to benefit or consolidate around Ireland and the Irish identity. You know. And you know we have all kinds of mixtures going on. You know that will always be the case. But where it's going, what it's consolidating around, will determine the result. You know, and that's really.
I mean, an indicator of the negative aspect of it is when you go into a town in Ireland now and you see these international wire companies where people are wiring the money back to the poorer countries around the world, you know, like in Got, you know, it's
Yes.
like 1/3 Brazilian,
Yes.
and you got these wire companies because I'm with the Nigerians as well. They're wiring most of the money back, so that's like sapping the energy, you know, the energy back to the poorer countries.
Yeah.
Now, some modern thinkers would say, well, that's good, isn't it? Because we actually rob them, blah blah blah. But actually, what it does is it's taking a lot of the energy away. And because they have such generous social welfare here, you know, they get stacks of money. You know, like, you know, in 1 month they probably get a full year's wage, you know,
Yeah.
in social welfare. You know, so why wouldn't they come here and exploit that
No problem.
and send it back? You know, by these wire companies and live eight to a house. You know,
At least you know where everything is.
And I can understand where they're coming from, you know, like in
Oh, of
Brazil,
course.
this one particular town where all these people in Gaul came from, they made a program about it and it's financed all these little businesses over in this
All
Brazilian
right.
town.
Okay.
You know, all these startup things. You know,
Yeah.
and that big, I suppose you could call that quite positive, but that's economic. If you look at money as a sort of unit of economic activity, that's lost energy to the local economic
Ireland.
system in Gort, for instance.
Yeah,
You know, like
exactly.
half the money that's being generated is going out in a small way. Now, of course, multinationals do it in a very big way. You know, so it's nothing. It's peanuts compared to
And that's the other
multinationals.
side of it. Who does it benefit?
Yeah.
I mean, we've all been immigrant families. My family was an immigrant family. Who does immigration benefit? It benefits the
Or that.
country
I'll have to bring it up to them.
well, in the case of the Brazilians, Irish resources benefit Brazil. You know.
Yeah, and the factory owners get cheap labour, which is
Cheap labour,
is what it's
very
about.
elite.
Yeah, but does that create?
Michael Jones calls it the global homo thing, where people don't even need enough money to raise a family anymore. They're going to the gay disco instead. So he says.
Yeah, that's the social side of it too. Yeah.
Is it? Well, yeah. I mean,
Yeah. It doesn't create wealth in Gort, you know, that's the thing.
not really. I don't think.
I mean, it's
Well, it
amazing, right?
undermines-
We have a big beef industry in Ireland, right? And we don't have one tannery left in Ireland. So I think it's
That's a
Spain.
good point. Yeah.
Spain, our hides are all processed in Spain.
Yeah.
Well, I went down to
Well, probably other
Clonmel.
countries as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
There was a tannery in Clonmel, and it was run by Pakistanis, you know? Because I remember going down to it about 15, 20 years ago to get
24
hides.
years ago.
I'm going to say
to
it's
get
not really
hides.
there.
Yeah, so
It went the day before my
even the
firstborn
guys,
was due.
yeah, exactly. But even the guys who have come over to take advantage of the taxes and everything, you know, they haven't succeeded in the local Irish economy. You know, the tannery is gone,
Yeah.
and that's the story of Gort.
Well, I mean, it's the story of globalization. You know, I mean,
No protection, no
The
protectionism.
classic example was the sugar beet factory. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, Ireland was self-sufficient in sugar, or could be. You know, because it was. You know, a lot of farmers were supplying that in Carlow. Well, do close it down. I mean, this is obviously if you can't see what they're up to.
Well, I remember the beet lorries going always passing. You'd see them going, people were growing beet, and you could see big lorry loads of beet. They were little pieces of beet,
Yeah.
maybe that size.
Yeah,
And
But yeah, I mean, that was sacrilege. And then another example, like you say, is the tanneries. You know, Ireland produces all this skin, all this hide, and you go down to the docks in Limerick, and you see tens of thousands of hides just all piled on pallets, you know, with preservative on, like you said, being shipped around the world. But that's such an amazing commodity, you know, leather, and you can't get a leather factory together.
it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, you know. Yet you got all these people unemployed.
and I think the meat factory's gone from Gort as well.
Yeah,
That
it will
brought
have.
everybody over.
Yeah.
And so, you know, is it creating wealth in Gort? No. Does
So I
Gort?
think we have to bring back all our entrepreneurs from all over the world, and we have to be entrepreneurs ourselves and start setting up these factories, like processing hides and all that.
But there's something needs to change in the system as well. What's not working in the system that these hides are going out? What can we do?
Well, why are we so dependent
Is it the
on
cost of
multinational-
production because of
why are we
rents?
why are we so dependent on multinational companies, foreign companies, where the profits are all repatriated?
And that's what
back?
pushes pushes the cost of production up.
See,
Yeah, the rents. I don't know. I'm just
transport is so
I'll
cheap
get there in the
now,
end.
You know, because it's oil, really.
Yeah.
Because transport's so cheap that they can ship them halfway around the world, and it's still in good enough condition to actually, you know.
Where are the
process
greens?
The greens.
Where are the greens on this? On all this,
Well,
these
hold on a
food
second. We no
food
longer
miles.
we no longer have a minister for the environment.
No, the Greens have got the solution. They just reduce the population by 3/4.
Yeah.
We no longer have a minister for the environment.
But still send the hides to be sorry.
We no longer have a minister for the environment. We have a minister for climate action.
Okay.
They've dropped
Oh, so the environment
They
is
don't care.
only the sky. No, right. Okay. Right, got it.
The
Yeah.
environment doesn't matter anymore. Pollution doesn't matter. Waste doesn't matter.
It's only like one compound, carbon dioxide. Is the whole
And I think
Agenda.
the Connolly father and son team proved that it's really only a bogus theory.
because the measurement took place near cities. Yeah,
And,
the cities
and
are
like you
one.
say, the carbon dioxide has become a monoculture, you know. And it seems to be, for many things, the only thing that
The only thing that counts.
is produced of any value or non-value, you know. Good man, Conor. Yeah, we've enjoyed this one now, anyway.
But I gave her like 870.
Right, we'll switch it off then. And we can,
Yeah, how long did that go on for? That was
that's about 29 minutes.